Hey guys, so there is an ACT exam in about 17-18 days, and I wanted to provide you guys with some last-minute study tips, specifically in terms of how exactly you can study and what are the different ways that you can study depending on what your actual weaknesses are. I always try to provide advice to you guys, but in order to take it to the next level, I want to provide an element of personalization. Not just telling you, hey, do this, this, and this, but more so, if you're struggling with this, then this is probably a good plan of action for you. And if you're struggling with something else, then that's probably a better plan of action for you. That's what I'm going to do in this video. I have 3 different study plans that you can follow for depending on which sections you're struggling in, how much you might have practiced them already, how much you might have not practiced them, and what kind of things or strategies you might have already implemented. Based on all of that, you can make a decision on what the best course of action for you is for these last few weeks before your exam, regardless if you're taking the April 17th one or the one in June, July, whatever it is. So the 3 basic plans are the standard plan, the English and math focused plan, and the reading and science focused plan. And these aren't just based off of what you're weakest in, but also there's an element to this of how much you've practiced each one of these. Because if you haven't really practiced one of these sections, but you have practiced more of the others, then that's something that's also going to impact your plan, and we'll talk about that when we get into the 3 plans. So before we get into any of the plans, I just wanted to mention that if you need any more help, resources, practice problems, free resources like practice exams, we have lots of resources linked below on our website, from free practice exams to all the things that I mentioned, so you can check those out over there. So let's get into the 3 plans. Let's start with the standard. What is the typical, general, broad kind of study plan that you can follow if you have a few weeks left? What I would recommend, if you have a very short amount of time and you have already practiced quite a bit, probably take 1 practice exam every like 3, 4, 5 days, okay? And that's if you have already taken maybe 5, 6 full timed official practice exams. Again, full timed official. So it can't, if it's a Princeton review, you can't, that doesn't count. If it's not timed, it doesn't count. And if it's just a half a practice exam, well, that counts as half a practice exam. So if you've taken 5 or 6 full timed official practice exams, then maybe just do a few more, 2, 3, 4-ish more before your test date, and try to just fill in any gaps that you might have with certain skills or strategies. Now, if you're wondering what those actual skills and strategies might be, I'm going to be talking about those towards the end of the video. Now, the latter part of the standard study plan, if you haven't practiced much at all, then this is where you're kind of in an intense situation. I typically recommend that a student takes 8 to 12 full official timed practice exams before their test date. If you don't have any, or maybe if you just have a couple, you need to take a lot of practice tests, but I'm not going to make you take 8 to 12 in just 3 weeks, because you're going to burn out. It's bad for your health. I'm sure you're already busy with lots of other things. Rather, what you can do is just take 1 full test every 2-3 days. You can split up an exam, like if you want to do English on Monday and then math the next day and then reading and science the day after. That's a 3-day period. You did a full exam. As long as you do it with timing and you take official tests like the 6 free ones that we have linked below, then you should be fine. But you need the practice volume, and you need to use the strategies, experiment with different timing methods, different reading methods, different skimming methods to see what actually works for you. If you haven't got the practice yet, you need to get to it as soon as possible. I'd recommend after this video, take at least 1 or 2 practice sections, whatever it is that you haven't practiced quite a bit or that you're struggling in, and get that out of the way and start building some consistency for these next few days. All right, that's the standard plan, and I already went over a lot of things, but that's just the basic standard plan. So let's take that a step further, add a level of personalization, and let's talk about the English and math focused plan. So how do you know that this is a plan that's good for you? If you're someone that struggles with English and math, if you haven't taken a class past Algebra 2, if English might be your second language or third language, or maybe you've practiced it quite a bit, but you notice your reading and science is much higher and your English and math are lower, then this is a plan that you should follow. I've said the English and math method. What exactly is it? You basically take the standard method that I just talked about and you add 2 things to it. First, take notes on each problem or each skill that you find yourself struggling with. So after each practice exam, just take a separate notebook. I'd recommend just take a brand new notebook or just at least a sheet of paper and write down, okay, I got problems 3, 10, 25, and 33, and whatever other problems wrong, and each problem was testing me on this skill or that skill or whatever skill. Just categorize it to the best of your ability. Doing that will give you an idea of what you're struggling with, so you actually know what you need to improve on. Now, once you're actually taking notes on the specific problems and the problem types that you're getting wrong and trying to notice patterns on what those problems look like from practice exam to practice exam, you can actually redo and re-drill those problems that you got wrong from your past exams, and that'll help you learn a little bit by little bit of what you're struggling on, and that's how you'll make progress on the actual skills. You're not going to learn a skill by just going over one problem that you might have got wrong of that skill, but if you go over maybe 3, 4, 5, 10 problems of a particular skill, and each problem is testing you from different angles, you can absolutely make a lot of progress on that particular skill. So just as a summary, the English and math plan, you take the general method that I just talked about, you keep notes of each problem that you got wrong and what skill you think it's testing you on. Take like a separate notebook and do this, and then the last thing is redo those problems and do them again and again. Don't just do them once or twice. I'd recommend re-drill all of your past mistakes after each practice exam that you take, because you don't want to forget those past mistakes that you made, otherwise you're going to make them again and you're not going to make progress. Also, if you're really struggling with English and math and you're at this phase where you have just a week or 2 or maybe 3 weeks left, you definitely want to take twice as many English and math practice exams as you do reading and science. So don't do reading and science to the extent that you do English and math, because you need more English and math practice. All right, so let's flip the switch and talk about reading and science. Now, these two, obviously, since you're focusing on these, you probably want to practice English and math less if the case for you is that reading and science are more of a struggle. So what exactly do you need to do with the reading and science focused study plan if these are the ones you're struggling more in? The main thing with reading and science is that you can improve it just by doing practice exams again and again and again, but that usually takes time. That's what I did. I had many months that I practiced, 2 or 3 months I'd say, and I just took a bunch of practice exams, and over time, without any like specific strategies that I used initially, I just improved. Since you don't have luxury of time, you need to be more focused on what your strategies are, and you need to get to choosing the best timing and skimming strategies for you as fast as possible. You take your general study plan that I talked about at the beginning of the video, but you add 2 things. First, you want to experiment with the different annotation or timing or skimming strategies. I'll talk about that. And then the second thing is you need to take notes on what worked and what didn't work. So let's talk about the first thing. What are the different skimming, timing, annotation methods? Well, for skimming, for example, there are 5 different ways to skim that we've outlined completely on this channel. We have videos that go over this in depth, so I'm not going to get into it here, but for example, one method of skimming is to just completely read in depth. Another way to skim is to just read or just skim everything at like a 50% faster pace than just reading in depth. Another way is to like skim certain parts of the passage and then read certain parts of the passage. There's more strategies, there's more ways to go about it. Some students really like certain methods, some students absolutely hate certain methods. So you need to find a method that works best for you by experimentation, by trying it on a couple practice exams. And this takes, obviously, practice exams. So that's why the first thing that I mentioned was you got to build the practice volume, all right? In terms of annotation methods, like for reading, we have those 3 things that I recommend you look out for that a lot of passages will tend to talk about. Same for science, there's 3 things that you need to look out for, and you need to annotate them when you see them. Again, I will link some videos below and in the card that go over these things in depth and actually show you how to do these. And then the last thing was the timing method. So on science, for example, there's 3 different ways to time yourself that you can absolutely choose between depending on what score you want. Like if you want a lower score, you can get away with a strategy where you're spending more time per passage. But if you want a 27 or a 30 or above, you need to split your time evenly. So I'm not going to go in depth on what exactly these strategies are because again, it'll take a very long time to talk about all of it, but you need to experiment with the different methods. Everything will be linked below so you can watch exactly what you need to watch and get all the information that you need. The second thing is once you actually start experimenting and you've taken a couple practice exams, or even if you've taken one, you need to take notes on what worked and what didn't work. Because again, this process is all about experimentation and getting to the right strategy for you as fast as possible. So when you experiment, after you take a practice exam, take notes, like say, all right, this method, I tried it, it worked really well. This other method, I tried it on my second exam and it really didn't work well at all, so I'm gonna avoid that. This will help you remember what exactly happened on your practice tests, and it'll help you get to that best method for you a lot faster. And the very last thing that I'll say for reading and science, this does not apply for English and math, but print out your practice exams. At the very least, print out your passages, because the passages, if you're trying to do the annotation, it really helps if you're able to actually write on the passage and circle things, underline things. Our annotation strategy that I talked about before that you should be using that will help you understand things faster and easier, it's very dependent on annotation and actually writing on the passage. I know printing is expensive. You don't have to print out the whole exam. Just print out those few pages that the 4 reading passages are on and the 6 or 7 science passages are on. That might be like 4 or 5 pages front and back, so it's not terrible. I would really recommend you do that. You don't have to print out the questions, right? But I've seen student scores go up a decent amount when they just switch from doing practice exams on a computer to doing them on paper, because again, the annotation strategy really helps. And the one more thing that I want to say is if you need any more resources or prep, or if you're trying to actually cram and do it with me or with a tutor so you have some more direction and pointers on what you should be doing with your time remaining, check out the courses that we have linked below. We have a one-on-one tutoring program that many students have used to cram within 2 weeks and that I've improved 6 or more points with. So you can actually absolutely cram. It's going to be a lot of work for you, but this is something that you could do as well if you want a little bit more assistance and one-on-one personalized advice. That's it for me. Again, like I said, lots of resources below. You can check out our courses and free resources as well on our website. So that's it for me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Good luck.